Welcome to Locally Speaking, a podcast where elected officials take some time to chat about the municipalities and regional districts that make up local governments in British Columbia and how we manage to get anything done at all. I'm Brenda.
And I'm Alton.
And in today's episode, we want to talk about the UBCM annual conference now that we've had some time to digest. We want to talk about our favorite parts, what the public really doesn't get to hear about, and despite all the hustle and bustle, it really is a worthwhile trip.
We also want to give you an update on where things are at with the podcast since we've been quiet for a while. And joining us in our conversations today is Justine Gabias, the Sunshine Coast Regional District Rural Director representing Area B, Halfmoon Bay. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? What brought you to politics, Justine, and what concerns your community?
Well, hello. First and foremost, I must say, big fan of the show. I've been a big fan since episode 1.
We found one! Woo!
Which episode 1? Happy anniversary to both of you. Wish I could have brought you something to celebrate.
Yeah.
But yes, been a big fan of the show. And as a newly elected, I've found it very valuable to listen to other electeds, to staff, to the two of you talk about something that we don't talk about enough, I think. And it's really demystified it. And I think it's a very great resource for elected leaders in BC and around the country. Go global.
Go global.
Okay, there we go.
That's the nice thing about sharing the internet, right?
Yeah.
This is your first term, obviously, and we're now past the 1 year mark.
That's right. Since the election, yes.
Since the election. Yeah. Is there anything that surprised you about this role?
Yeah, a lot of things, actually. The biggest surprise was how much I enjoy it. A lot of people, when I tell them what I do for a living, the look on their face is more of a pity. But it's actually very interesting, and I'm having a really good time. It's challenging, obviously, as you know, but there's so many layers to it. There's so many components. I don't think anything can prepare you for local government.
What made you run in the first place?
What made me run in the first place? Well, my family is quite political on my dad's side. Like, my grandfather was a cabinet minister in the 60s. Yes, that's correct.
Really?
Yes, cool. In Quebec. And my uncle was an MP some years ago. So it's like I kind of grew up in it a little bit, but never really thought about getting into it myself. But when I moved to Halfmoon Bay, which was in 2020, I started getting involved with more climate action groups, and it was really inspiring in that group. There was a lot of super smart people they were so well organized, and it really gave me a look into grassroots movement and how people can actually drive change. And I found it really inspiring. And there was one of the organizers told me politics is all about finding a window. You just have to find the window. And when the election came about, the director at the time had decided not to run again. So there was a window to get in. And I was like, why can't I do this? I don't know. I've never done this before. So I did a bit of research and some homework, and I reached out to some directors to ask them, what's the job, and can I actually do this? Can I learn fast enough? And I was encouraged to run. And really, it was first and foremost with the climate action in mind, and wanting to be represented in local government, kind of a younger generation, really concerned about the climate emergency that we find ourselves in. And so I ran also because there was another candidate. So there was two of us. So we did have a race. We were the only race of all rural areas in that election. And I didn't really know what his platform was, because if you're the only one running, you get acclaimed. So you don't really need to run a campaign. You don't really need to tell people what you're about. So I ran mostly because I wanted to know. I wanted Halfmoon Bay to have the chance to have a discussion, because there was so much change happening in Halfmoon Bay. I was fairly new. I'd only been there for a couple of years, but I could sense it, because of COVID, the demographics were changing. There was a lot of development. People were feeling quite anxious about the direction of Halfmoon Bay. So I thought, you know what, we should utilize this time to talk about our vision for Halfmoon Bay. So I ran so that we could have that discussion, and I was like, I could always pull out, But then I enjoyed very much. I enjoyed campaigning, so I stuck with it, and I got elected. And the rest is history.
And history being developed every day.
Yes, in front of our eyes.
So how do you engage with your community? That's something we've talked about in the podcast before, and it's something that we're sort of exploring as we go through our different themes and topics. Is engagement really underpins
that's
everything.
the burning question.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. One of the really interesting facets of it is everybody does it differently. Every
They sure do.
counselor, every director does it differently. And that's something that year one, I was gung-ho. I was like, I'm going to have a newsletter and I'm going to like have a website. But then year one was so intense and the learning was really intense. I focused on that mostly, so that the engagement sort of fell to the wayside a little bit. I did go to all the, like most of the events in my neighborhood and tried to talk to people face to face as much as possible. And if people contact me and they want to go for coffee, I do say yes and I do go chat with them. But this year, I'm really focusing on communications. That's my big focus for year two, and try to engage more people, especially like younger people, young families in my neighborhood. I want to know what they would like. So I'm going to try different things. So I'm trying some online office hours. That will be one thing that I'll be doing.
Oh, okay.
So-
So a time that you're available, that people could connect with you online.
Yeah, because we don't have a coffee shop in Halfmoon Bay. So there's no place in the winter to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I thought, like maybe a couple hours every couple weeks, I'll be at my computer with a Zoom link and people can just, if they have a question, they want to catch up, they want to give some feedback, they can just join the Zoom room and we can have a conversation that way. And then utilizing my website a bit more and then the newsletter once in a while. But yeah, like and it's interesting to see what everybody else is doing. And, there could be thinking of opportunities to maybe like joining forces at the board table, maybe like having, trying to find ways to help each other out in the communications department. Because like if we're talking about what's happening at the board table, most of the time we're talking about the same thing. So can we actually work together?
Instead of nine different efforts of sharing the news.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, your online availability idea, that's a great idea. That might,
We'll try it out.
even if you get a couple people
That's a
taking
success.
you up on it, right? Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So this was your first UBCM.
Yeah.
And what I'm interested to know what you were expecting versus how it was. Was it what you expected? Was it different?
It was different. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know that I imagined it so much in my mind, but
Okay.
I did. One thing that surprised me was how I thought voting on resolutions was the crux of it. That's what, I mean, it kind of is, but it was fascinating how few people were in the room.
It's definitely not a focus when there's so much other things going on, right?
And like to understand that, I think what the focus seems to be, like the big value is the ministers' meetings. It seems like the networking and being able to chat with the people at the province and hopefully get their ear. But yeah, the sessions were terrific. I went to some really good sessions, and the networking is, beyond my wildest dreams. All the receptions every night and being able to connect with. And it was interesting because I had only been to ABICC and LGLA, and so those were island coastal centric.
Right.
So it was interesting to be at UBCM where it's people from all over the province, and then it's a completely different flavor. So that was pretty fascinating. What did you guys like about UBCM?
Well,
Do you think it's worthwhile?
the hotel I stayed at was terrible, unlike you SCRD types. So, other than worrying for my safety, no, I always enjoy UBCM for those reasons. I actually found the sessions this year were not as great as they have been in the past. So that's good to hear that you found the value. I know we went to a lot of different ones too, so that could just be the case. It is like speed dating, the minister meetings, but I think you have to take every opportunity that you can when you have the province's ear. So I would never not do those. The networking is great. It was the largest crowd that they've ever had, I think, this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think...
Yeah, over 100 years of UBCM,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And so it was really, really packed at a lot of those networking events. It wasn't always easy to make
So
your way
was it
around the room.
busier than your previous UBCMs. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they said that. They said the registration was off the wall. So, but yeah, I would never not go. I think it's a good opportunity on many different levels, as are the other ones. But it is cool to talk to people from elsewhere in the province because, you know, we're a small rural community and there's lots of those other than Vancouver Island. So it's great to do that.
For those that don't know that are listening, UBCM is the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, and they have it's all the municipalities in British Columbia, and there's an annual conference every year, either in Vancouver, Victoria, or Whistler, where all the municipalities can send representatives, get together. There's educational sessions, there's workshops, there's networking lunches, there's receptions that are put on by sponsors, the resolution sessions, of course. I think the resolution sessions are really quite fascinating from a procedural perspective because you get to see different ideas come forward, and it might be prohibiting municipalities or stratas from banning clotheslines to making sure that there's no sales tax on heating oil, or, you know, allowing people to live in an RV full-time anywhere in the province. It's all about municipalities coming together and directing the province on policy changes that they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So there, you end up getting a fairly broad perspective between the coastal communities, the interior communities, the communities up in the north. You know, for us, heat pumps are a great idea. That was a resolution a year or two ago where, you know, everything needs to move towards electric heat pumps. And folks up in the north are like, our power goes out for days and weeks at a time. Electric heat pumps don't make sense up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easy to forget about those other jurisdictions and those other areas when we're not able to get together like that. The minister meetings can be hit and miss. You only get 15 minutes per minister meeting, and that includes your introductions and introducing your topic and the handshaking at the end of the session. But I know in years past, you sit down, you give your pitch, and you just, like, eyes glaze over. It has been really discouraging in the past. But I felt like the minister meetings this year, for at least for us, were a lot more productive. I don't know. How did you feel about that, Brenda?
Well, I would agree, but at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding, right? Like, what does anything come out of it? So we did have actual follow-up meeting with senior staff at Indigenous Relations. So that's something that's not happened before. And it was a pretty productive meeting, I think. So we'll see. But, you know, my grandmother always said, like, you can't just complain about stuff and then not try and do something. So when the only other option is really not to bother going at all, it doesn't make sense. And the taxpayers pay for us to go. So, you know, you need to take opportunity to advocate. Now, I wonder if the taxpayer would feel like it's worth their money for us to attend. I don't know that they've ever been asked. And I mean, I think it's part of the job. But
well, and it's interesting because it's kind of nonstop from sun up to sundown.
Yeah, it's tiring.
Between minister meetings and sessions and tours. Justine and I did the agriculture tour on the first day, right? And we didn't even see anybody until the end of the day.
Yeah.
One of the things that we planned to do was to try and record some interviews with people while we were there. Great. We've got all the elected in the province in one spot.
Yeah.
Some of the provincial politicians too. We recorded one interview.
I know.
The entire week that we were there because we were so
tired.
busy and so tired by the end of
But
the
it was
sessions.
also noisy everywhere we went.
Everywhere was noisy.
And our producer, a.k.a. Alton Toth, doesn't like to record when it's noisy. So
makes it difficult to edit later.
That's right. That's right.
Can I ask a question to you both?
Of course.
In the past, like, what what to you makes for a good ministers' meeting? Like, have you had some successes that you can really pinpoint? And if so, like, what do you think made those meetings work?
Oh, I don't know that we'd say that we've had any
Resounding
No?
successes, but I think you have to go prepared for sure. Like, you don't want to spend any of your 15 minutes going,
Well,
Spitballing.
I've
Let me
got it.
find my
Let me see
notes.
that. I'll find that email. Yeah, I've got that note here.
Yeah.
it's
somewhere.
a very short time.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then,
a lot of the time, it's not even so much about trying to get a commitment to solve an issue. It's about surfacing the issue
right.
so that the minister knows.
Right.
And then you can do follow-up advocacy. You can have the staff meetings. You can send some of your council to Victoria to go have some follow-up meetings. You can continue the letter writing.
Yeah, it's by no means the only opportunity. But I mean, that would be my only thing, is to go in prepared with exactly how you're going to talk for those 10 minutes that you have. Yeah.
So we did record one interview while we were there. At one of the receptions, we managed to find a corner that was quiet enough to talk
stairwell.
to somebody. Why don't we play that?
Okay.
And then we can talk a little bit about it, because I know that this is something, Brenda, that you've had interest in outside of just UBCM.
I'm Cindy Solda, and I'm a city councillor for the city of Port Alberni.
Excellent. Is this your first term?
No, I've been on council since 2001. I've gone through 8 elections, and I was successful in 7 because I ran for mayor on one of them.
Wow, good for you. Okay, what are the two hot topics in your community?
Homelessness and affordability of just housing.
And for either of those, in the first year of this term, do you feel like you guys have been able to make any headway in it?
Oh my God, we've done amazing. We've given Women's Resource Center, which is not the correct name at the moment, but we've given them some land so they can build a housing. We've given First Nations land so they could build housing, affordable housing for all. And we've given land to have 30 tiny homes built for the homeless. We're not done yet. There's lots more we can do. And it's I get very emotional on this when we have slum landlords that don't care unless it's the dollar they get from the homelessness. And I have
awesome.
issues.
Okay. Are there any resolutions here at UBCM that you're really interested in or following?
Anything to do with homelessness, to do with doctors, because we have issues with doctors in communities, the lack of. We have 5 doctors that are retiring. There's affordable housing on our list. There's so much. I think every community has the same issues, but in a different capacity. And we've got to be part of it to make it happen, something to happen in the communities.
Excellent. What is it that you wish people knew about local government?
That we love what we do, we want to make a difference, and we want to help people. You know, we're not there for our own pat on the back. It's not what it's all about.
Awesome. Thanks for talking with us today.
You're welcome.
That was awesome of Cindy to take a couple minutes to talk with us. There's a couple things in there that I kind of want to unpack. Brenda, I know that we've talked about a little bit about this affordable housing, these little micro suite things before. Why don't you describe what they are, what they're all about?
This was actually a program that started because of COVID in Victoria, and then Duncan, where they built individual little cabins, maybe 10 by 12 or 8 by 10, fully independent. And then they would have shared showers, shared bathroom, shared kitchen space. And in Port Alberni's situation, they had a slumlord that was packing in RVs onto his lot, charging rent. And I mean, they were packed in. We drove by when we did our field trip and looked at them, and they were packed in. And some of them had fires in them. They were still living in them. I mean, it was a sight to behold. And So the city of Port Alberni bought the property next to it when it came for sale. They partnered with BC Housing, and the city did all the servicing for the lot. They purchased cabin kits, if you will, I think for about $12,000 a piece, and then their carpentry college students, I believe, put them all together. And so it was a real partnership amongst a bunch of groups. And at the time of UBCM, they had moved in some of the peeps. And the entire project is going to be run by a nonprofit called the Friendship Center in Port Alberni, who hasn't done housing before, but we're willing to take this on. BC Housing, they don't like to do this, and they only call it temporary. But the reality is, unless you have housing for them to go to, it can't be temporary. So there was a resolution passed at UBCM by Michelle Staples, who's the mayor of Duncan, who's the real charge behind this, around BC Housing recognizing this as not temporary housing. And you can see they just approved 130 in Kelowna, something like that, a whole whack of them. And so they're not going to be able to ignore it much longer, I don't think. Now, they usually, when they approve these communities, they will also build supportive housing that the people living in this temporary housing are supposed to transition to. But also, by the time that happens,
the demand is so high.
You likely have more people that need to go into these cabins. And the people, it's interesting because one of the schools of thought is because these people are living in these cabins, if you will, and they need to come out to go to the bathroom, to shower, to eat, that they actually interact with other people, and the people that the site has got on-site staffing 24 hours a day. So there's, nobody can come in that doesn't live there after a certain time at night and that sort of stuff. So there's a bit of security. But the people that work there will say that, that's much healthier than being in supportive housing where you have everything in your apartment. You never have to come out. So, staff actually have to do wellness checks on them to make sure that they're okay, because majority of them are living with addiction, right? So anyways, there's a whole mental health side of it, argument to be made for actually that model as opposed to supportive housing. So it's very interesting.
There was a great little project when we saw it there.
Yeah.
They had an artist in there. He was painting murals on the inside of all of the cabins. And it's a very dignified living situation.
Super. And the one in Duncan that is now moved to a new site is right downtown, completely residential, surrounded by apartments, not so much single family homes, but like apartments, seniors living, condos and stuff like that. And they're not having any, no one's worked up about it, which is great. And it's like its own little community, right? And the idea would be that you would have within the community, you'd have some sort of low barrier employment program, right? And try and work your way back into the world of the employed as well. So
cool.
Yeah. That's that. So that was a resolution that excited me. Actually.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. It was a good one.
Are you looking at doing or perhaps implementing something like this in Seashore?
Well, let me tell you, Justine Gabias.
Please do.
If you've noticed how much land they gave away when Cindy was talking. So they've got the land. Now they purchased the land for for the cabin project, but they obviously have land. Seashell doesn't. We don't have that luxury. So we have made land acquisition strategy part of our strategic plan recently. So it's been identified that we need to look at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of programming, a lot of options available if you have somewhere to build it.
Yeah.
And we're relying on private property owners. We're relying on developers. it's just not enough,
Yeah.
as we know, as we see.
Yeah, the municipality has to be a partner, I think.
And Cindy has served 7 terms. Right?
Eight.
I thought it was 7 on
8
council.
elections. Oh,
Yeah,
8 elections.
8 elections, so 7 terms.
terms.
We'll have to find somebody that we can talk to that's served for a really long time about that. Because I imagine you see quite a transition. You see quite the change over the course of, 7 terms is at least 21 years.
Yeah.
And changing colleagues every
Yeah.
4 years.
Do you think you'll be here in 7 terms? On the regional district board?
Time will tell.
Chair
Right.
Gabias.
That's a long time.
That's a
And,
really long
kudos to anybody who can do it for that long. Because, I think in 2018, when I ran the first time, it was like 2 terms and I'm done. And I still feel pretty strongly about that. So we'll see, right?
Until you get to the end of your second term, and then you're like, I'm on a roll.
Hey, might as
I
well
don't
keep
wanna-
going.
yeah.
It's only been 2. I got at least 5 more in me. Yeah. So it's hard to say. I don't know.
You guys have fun with that. I'll be in the gallery.
Perfect. You might as well
Putting
be
my
at the
hand
table.
up. Yep. I have a question.
Oh, what was your favorite social event?
Actually, my favorite social event was the Kofi reception, which is the Council of Forest Industries or what have you.
Yeah. Why?
Because they had the social stuff going on, but they also had a lot of education. They had vendor tables all the way around the perimeter of the room. So you could talk to the people from the Fire Smart program of British Columbia. You could talk to people from, indigenous forestry operations. You could talk to the community forests. So that was cool. They snuck in a learning opportunity, which a lot of the receptions are just an opportunity to relax and unwind. So that one was my favorite.
Where was I? What day was that?
I don't even remember.
We snuck it in. It was not really on our
It wasn't
plan.
published, I
Yeah.
don't think.
Oh,
I don't know, because a couple of them we didn't really hang around very long because there were so
Packed.
many people there. The banquet was fun. I enjoyed the comedian that they had at the banquet.
Yes, the keynote
Yeah.
comedian.
Yeah, and it's always good to get your dance on. I was disappointed we didn't get to karaoke. But I guess we'll save that for Nanaimo. That can be our Nanaimo thing.
I'm working on a Christmas party.
Oh, are you?
It's in a karaoke bar on the Sunshine Coast, so
We'll make our own.
we're safe from that.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, we're
take
never
much.
safe. No, there's,
We've got microphones right here.
yeah, right here.
What was your favorite?
My favorite social event? What was the one? It was the CUPE one? The Union? What
Yeah,
was it?
Cupie.
The CUPE?
Well, the one where Director Bax got down and proposed to Selena
was the one.
Robinson, that was
Yes.
that was fun.
That was
Yes.
pretty fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was fun.
And that one was fun because there was staff around too, which we don't get to. I don't get to talk to staff very often,
Yep.
so it was nice to have that kind of casual time and
Yeah.
get to know them. But I think my favorite social event was when we Director Toth or Councillor Toth and I went to a 24-hour bakery, picked up a couple pieces of cake and just ate them in the lobby of the hotel, and just talked about we remade the world.
Yeah,
until
we solved all the
2
world's
a.m.
problems.
We did. We really did. Yeah, that was pretty fun, and that's a good thing I think about conferences and conventions is. To me, so far, has been like getting to know my colleagues in a different setting.
Yeah, that's
has
right.
Been
Yeah.
really, and like getting to know people from Seashelt and Gibson's and the Nation, and so that's been. Once you get out of your routine and then you're kind of all together for a certain period of time, you kind of create different bonds. I think like there's opportunity to get to know each other better. I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for even just pulling aside somebody you've just met and, sitting down in the lobby of the hotel and chatting about things that are going on or
Yep.
what they think of, where those poor District of Seashelt folks have to stay for the conference or, all of that. It's a lot of opportunity for bouncing ideas off other people for sure.
So where will you be staying at UBCM 2024?
Apparently 2 rooms at the Fairmont and the rest are at somewhere else that looks like it's okay.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it looks
Maybe a
decent.
lottery system for.
Well, sometimes the rooms open up, right? And so they'll be on
People
trying to
bail.
get, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So an update on the podcast, because
Yeah.
it's been a while since we've recorded an episode.
Yep.
April, not that we're keeping track of these things.
Oh my gosh, really?
April was the last time we recorded an
Wait,
episode. We've
With
been
Aiden?
That's terrible.
we've been busy, and
Yeah.
I'm totally happy to own that because we've had challenges in trying to find time to record because you work full time. I've got lots of things on the go.
Yeah.
We've had a hard time finding a decent place to record that's quiet and reliably available. We've experimented with Municipal Hall, with like my store, with
The foundation room at the hospital.
we've recorded at
Yeah.
the hospital. They've all had their challenges for sure. I know we joked about it at the start, but if we can find quiet space reliably, that makes producing the podcast so much easier. We can get them out faster. They're way easier to edit. So hopefully we're in a position now to have solved the recording space issue. We'll see how this podcast episode turns out because we're using a room that is intended for recording. So if that works, we're going to be hopefully recording a lot more regularly.
We'll have to get all our 51 fans back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got to work hard for that.
Well, maybe Justine can help us.
Yeah. So that's part of why we're talking with Justine today, right? Is that we've asked you to join us with putting the podcast together. You've been acting as a bit of a producer for us over the summer here,
Or hype woman.
trying
For
to
sure.
get us moving and motivated. But I'm looking forward to hearing the two of you interviewing people. I don't think it's going to be all three of us all the time. That's part of the scheduling challenges. If one of us isn't available, there's still two people to record an episode.
Yeah.
What sort of interviews do you want to do?
I would love to interview people who have made something as a newly elected person who's still trying to figure out the process and how to get anything done. Finding someone who's been able to get something big done and see kind of break it apart and how did that happen? Who did you talk to? How, try to the mechanics of making a big project happen.
Right.
I'd be interested in knowing that. And I'd love to speak with other newly elected folks who maybe never done it before and see what their experience is like. And, I'm always a sucker for a good climate action story. So that would also be something I'd be looking to do. But yeah, how about you? What's on your radar?
Well, we've been playing around with the idea of potentially doing some podcasts focused on local issues that we're having. So I want to cogitate on that a little bit. And I was just thinking, we've never put this out in the UBCM chat group.
No.
Have we? We could put it out there and say, are there any newly electeds who would be willing to,
Who wants to join us?
who wants to be a guest and where you're from? That might be kind of fun.
Just throw it out there as an
To
open
do.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We've always relied on people finding us and then
Really?
hearing the pitch at the
well,
end.
that's
and
where I come in. I'll
This
go
is why-
fishing.
this is why we need a producer.
Yeah. And it'd be great too to hear I'd love to hear stories of people who were in local politics and what happened after. What did they move on to? Did
Yeah.
they stay in politics? Did they, I guess maybe I don't want to hear people who burnt out.
But no, we want to talk to our MLA and our MP because we know them and we know that they're open to it. And we've got a list of topics, maybe a Christmas themed one coming up here soon.
All I want for Christmas is
Don't you dare
X.
say a Santa on the roof.
no. What would be your wish? What do you want for Christmas in local government?
More housing. I want peace, man. I want a break.
We've had a break.
No. Okay, you're going to have to edit this all out.
So yeah, I think moving forward, we're going to be hopefully recording again soon. I know we've got a couple people lined up that we really want to talk to soon, but in the past, we've tried to publish on a 3-week interval. And I think that's caused us a lot of stress trying to maintain that. You guys are welcome to disagree with me. There's 3 of us doing this now, but I don't think we can really commit to a specific date of publication with everything we got going on. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, if you like us, you'll be notified when a new episode comes out anyways.
That's true. You can
Right?
follow us on LinkedIn, on
Yeah.
Facebook. You can...
All the platforms.
all the platforms. They even post little clips to YouTube.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we can only do what we can do. And right now, that's what we can do.
Yeah. Unless Justine starts recording by herself.
I just might.
Yeah.
I've got lots
Could
of stories to tell.
Good.
Ooh.
Stories by Justine. Oh,
The whole bedtime story series.
Local
good.
government ASMR. You've been listening to Locally Speaking, a podcast where local government officials chat about the regional districts and municipalities that make up local government here in BC. If you aren't following our podcast yet, you can subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts. Maybe you have a topic suggestion for the show, or you want to come and chat with us about what's going on in your area of the province. Drop us a line at locallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com, and let's make it happen.
This episode of Locally Speaking is recorded within the SWIA of the Sechelle Nation.